Welcome to Artistic Adventures. We're going to jump back to our porcelain doll rehab project today and do the male doll's hair and a little cap for him. So this is how he looks, if you remember. This was started before I had my hand surgery and lost a lot of my dexterity. I'm getting a lot of it back, and I do get this cast off in 3 days. So I want to go ahead and try to finish up this project, and then we can move on to some other doll projects. So I'm using the alpaca fiber I had left over from the sewn wig project that I just finished for my ball jointed doll, and I'm gluing this directly to his head. I'm not making a wig cap, I'm using E6000. I'm just putting a little strip of glue down and then gluing some of the fibers to it. Really the same process that I use when I do the glued wig cap, just gluing it directly to his head. And I'm doing that because I don't want the hair to be too thick, and doing it this way, I can attach it directly to it so that I'm making sure I cover all the areas that I need to cover, but I don't have to put quite as much hair on it. So I'm going to put the rows a lot further apart than I would on the glued doll, the glued wig cap type wigs that I make, and just making sure that I get everything covered and then the glue won't show through. He's going to have a little cap on, so I don't have to worry so much about having a finished look to the very top, which is another reason to use a wig cap. All right, so I'm just sort of trimming things up and going to continue as I normally do around the edges and working up to the crown of the doll with these pieces of alpaca fiber. And it's pretty long right now, but I am going to trim it. I planned from the beginning that this doll would have a sort of turn of the century look with a little bowl haircut and a page boy, or I guess newsboy cap. And he's going to have some knickers and a shirt and a little vest that we'll do in the next video. But for now, I just wanted to go ahead and get the hair on him and the little cap, and then we can see a little bit better how he's going to look so we can style the clothes. All right, so I finished getting all the fiber down, and I went back and just trimmed off the surplus of the hair, leaving it, way longer than I need, but I like to do it that way. So as I trim it slowly, I can make sure I don't get it too short in any place. I did have to put a little bit of water to dampen the hair. It was getting a little bit staticky and standing up, and I wasn't able to cut it as easily as I wanted to because I want it to lay down flat in this little bowl cut. And if anybody's noticed the white string that I have on my scissors, I love these scissors, but they're expensive. They're whisker. What? Oh, I can't even remember now the name of them. Anyway, I really love them. They're shaped like a stork and Fisker. That's what they are, Fisker. And I kept losing them because I drop them on the floor. And for some reason, I have this black hole in the area under my desk where if I drop anything, I really have a hard time finding it. So I finally decided I'm just going to tie them to my desk, and that way I won't lose them. Because they cost about 20 bucks, but they're nice because they're very sharp all the way out to the tip. All right, so I kind of finished the trim, and I'm going to put this saran over his head and put a rubber band to hold it down. And I'm going to leave him like this overnight, and that'll just help make the hair take shape and adhere more to the head. So while he's having his salon treatment, we're going to work on his cap. So I have this fake suede-like material that was actually a curtain that I found at a thrift store, and I marked the area around the top of his head where the edge of the cap would go, and then I'm making another mark about a half an inch out from that because we're going to gather this and we want to have enough to gather it in so that the top is as big as we still want it to be. Then I'm cutting a couple of squares here to make the brim of the cap. I'm just cutting basically kind of a half circle, and you can measure it then against the cap and trim it as needed. And I'm going to use this E6000 fabric fuse. I don't want to sew this. I want it to be seamed right at the edge. So I'm just putting this fabric fuse right around the edge of the two layers with the right sides of the fabric together, and then we'll turn it, and there won't be a lot of fabric bunched up in there from sewing a seam. And I'm taking the hem of this curtain and cutting off a strip of it, and that's going to be the base of the cap. So after I do that, I measure that around the doll's head to where I want the cap to be and trim it. And I made it just a little bit shorter so the cap wouldn't stick up too much. And then I put the fabric fuse along the seam of that to glue that together. All right, so we've got the main part of the cap, and we're going to now put a drawstring around that to gather the edges in to make the crown of the cap. So I'm just doing a very loose stitch by hand around there. And I'm dreaming about how much easier this will be when I get my thumb back. So once you get that gathered to where you need it to be, you can tie a knot and then make sure you spread all the little gathers out so that it's evenly dispersed around the edge of the cap. And once we get that done, then we're going to glue that brim, or that's not the brim, that's really, it's just the part that will be against the head. I'm not sure exactly the right term for that. And put that to the top of the head. So we're just using our E6000 because it dries really fast, and putting that just back from the edge of the cap, making sure we get it so that the two ends meet in the back of the cap, and then the front part will not have a seam. And then we set that aside and let that dry so that we can work with the brim now. So the brim is also dried, and we're ready to turn it. And once we can get it turned, then we can start doing the things we need to do to attach it to the cap. So make sure you get all the edges turned out. I'm using a paintbrush end to help stick in there a little bit. And then we're going to put we're going to trim it a little bit, and then we're going to put some E6000 inside to glue it together, and that will help us keep it in shape while we're gluing it. So you can see it's a little bit bigger than it needs to be, and you can take a pencil and mark what you want to trim, and you're trimming it sort of in a crescent shape to follow the round shape of the hat. And then we put a little bit of our glue on that and press it to the cap. And there's our little newsboy cap. That's what I'm calling it. All right, so let's see how our doll has survived being stuck inside plastic wrap all night. And it did help hold the hair down, but I'm still going to put a little bit of hairspray on it, and that will just help me keep it in shape while I'm trimming it, and then help keep it in shape even after when we put the doll's cap on it. So I'm just making sure I have it nice and even in that cute little bowl cut that we want for him. And once we get that finished, I'm going to actually glue the cap to the top of the doll. So I'm measuring it to see where I want it to sit. And once I know that, then I'm going to put the glue around the edge of the inside of the cap, and then carefully place it on the doll's head and press it down. And that will keep it in place and also help to keep the hair in place a little bit. If any glue pops out, you can usually wipe it away pretty easily with a sharp pointed tool. So there's our little boy with his newsboy cap. And from here, we're going to move on and complete his outfit in the next video. And then we'll be finished with our porcelain doll project and move on to something else. So I hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, please subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Thanks and bye.